man?
Fighting games and lost media, my two hyperfixations in one video. This is Fighting Game Lost Media, Volume 1. We're talking about canceled and lost titles as well as some multimedia projects. Let's not waste any time, grab that beverage, pull your lever close, subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. Virtua Fighter was easily a killer app for any platform.
In Japan.
VF2 was the reason to get the Sega Saturn.
In Japan.
Logically, with the third game, it should come to the Saturn, right? And it was going to. It's hard to appreciate now, but Virtua Fighter 3 was the most technologically advanced game at the time. No one was doing 3D graphics like this in 1996. With this power came some caveats. The board was expensive, and no home console at the time could replicate its graphics. Despite that, at E3 1996, a Saturn port of VF3 was confirmed, and a pre-rendered trailer was released later on. Model 2 titles needed some compromises to run smoothly on the Saturn, to say nothing of Model 3 games. According to Yu Suzuki, there was going to be a, quote, accelerator cartridge to help run the game on the system. There are rumors that the cancelled Saturn 32X was tied into Virtua Fighter 3, but he might have been talking about something else. The Saturn 32X was a bizarre idea. The Saturn was already a flop outside of Japan, and it's not like an add-on was going to salvage the thing elsewhere. Master stroke there, Sega. Whatever Suzuki was talking about, the accelerator cartridge got cancelled because of costs and Sega developing the Dreamcast. Despite those setbacks, Suzuki and his team at AM2 worked on the Saturn port, and it has been confirmed to exist. However, with Sega realizing that the Saturn was a lost cause and the Dreamcast nearing release, VF3 Saturn got cancelled on September 17, 1998. According to Suzuki himself, VF3 was finished on the Saturn not once, but twice. Those who have seen the game were reportedly impressed. While an obvious graphical downgrade from the arcade original, it still ran and played like Virtua Fighter should. Suzuki wanted to show that the Saturn had the capability to run 3D games as good, if not better, than the rivaling PlayStation, and he did that with flying colors. A few screens were given to IGN that shows what the game would have looked like. Unfortunately, due to Sega's management at the time, we never got to see what might have been the last great Sega Saturn title. Instead, Genki made the Dreamcast port of VF3. While a solid hit, it was not the best port of the title. Soul Calibur blowing Virtua Fighter 3 out of the water with its presentation and content did not help with VF3's reputation in the slightest.
Man, Soul Calibur was so cool. I remember playing that game a lot in the arcades back in the day. It's a shame that Namco has just forsaken the Soul Calibur series in favor of Tekken, but honestly, after playing Tekken 8, I kind of don't want a new Soul Calibur anymore.
The cancellation of the Saturn port is still a sore spot for Suzuki. In a 2017 interview, he was asked if he remembered anything about the port, to which he replied, "No, I don't." Which is funny, as Suzuki was open about Shenmue's Saturn build. There's plenty of documentation and videos about that, but not VF3 Saturn. My guess is he was salty about the whole port being cancelled, or is old and forgot about it. There's a world of difference between your game being moved to another console due to the scope of it, and your game being cancelled because the boss man says so. There's a video from YouTube channel VG Decide that shows a comparison video between the Saturn and Dreamcast versions of VF3, but that's a damn lie as VF3 never made it to the Saturn. Work on the Saturn port of VF3 was also put into the woefully underrated Fighters Megamix. If Sega was ran by logical people, Fighters Megamix could have easily been Sega Smash Bros. Before Smash Bros. Was even a thing. The VF2 roster has moves that would be seen in 3, and Janet shares the same moveset as Aoi, so it's the closest thing to VF3 on the Saturn. It is known that there are 2 master copies of VF3 Saturn somewhere in Sega's vault. Maybe they will leak someday, and hopefully Sega hasn't lost the masters to time like so many other things.
Test your might.
Unlike other game-to-movie adaptations, Mortal Kombat 1 was a damn good movie for its time. It was the best video game movie, but Sonic the Hedgehog 3 clears it, while the follow-up, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, was a bit of a letdown and a box office bomb.
You're alive. Too bad you will die.
Threshold still wanted to get a third movie made. A script was written, and from what's known about it is that Johnny Cage would have returned, and time travel was involved. Lyndon Ashby read the script, but said that there were legal issues with the IP at the time. Devastation kept going through development troubles. As late as 2005, the movie was trying to get off the ground. One of the rumored filming locations got hit by Hurricane Katrina, which was a sign of the elder gods to not make the movie. Devastation received 2 fatalities in 2009 thanks to a lawsuit, and Warner Bros. Getting the rights to the Mortal Kombat IP. It would take until 2021 for a new Mortal Kombat movie to get made, and again, here's the review of that film. While Devastation never got made, the script is out there. I would like to read it just to see what we could have had.
This is not a brutality. This is a fatality.
Meanwhile, the Machinima-produced web series had a 3rd season planned. It was going to be a tie-in to the then new Mortal Kombat 10. The season was going to be called Mortal Kombat 10 Generations. There are several behind-the-scenes photos, and I managed to dig up an assembly cut that is up on Vimeo. I'll leave a link in the description for you to enjoy. I don't want the wrist of the hand of Zaslav erasing this video over an assembly cut of a web series of Mortal Kombat of all things. 10 Generations started production in 2015 with a 2016 release date, so what happened? Many think that Warner Bros. Canceled the series in order to focus on the movie. That hasn't been verified. Plus, the movie would not be released until 2021. So it's not like the web series and the movie would have cannibalized each other. What's more likely is that AT&T acquiring Warner Bros. In 2018, then Machinima closing their doors in 2019 is what put Generations to bed. At that point, Mortal Kombat 11 was out, which would have dated Generations. Director Warren Garrett said that Warner Bros. And NetherRealms had different goals with the web series, and that's why it did not release. It's a very vague reason, but in this industry it's better to not ruin your career by airing some dirty laundry. We'll probably never know the real reason why Generations never saw the light of day. Mortal Kombat has gone into different directions since the web series ended, and because it's one of the few IPs that Warner Bros. Has full ownership of, they are going to milk it dry until Zaslav runs WB into the ground and can get his golden parachute. It would be cool to see Generations leak, just to see the work that was put into it. It would also be cool if NetherRealms would also make a fun fighting game for a change. Who doesn't love a Chocobo? Square agreed and sought to make a whole Chocobo fighting game around 1997. For the time, it was a graphical showcase. It could show up to 80 million polygons per second. Hey, it was 1997. This was cutting-edge technology back then. Chocobo de Battle was shown off at SIG 1997, running on the SIG Onyx board. Forgive the footage, again, it was 1997. It looks like a fighting game akin to Virtual On, but instead of robots, you play as a person on a chocobo that could shoot missiles. Renoa's Angelo Cannon has some competition. It also used a motion sensor for inputs instead of a standard control scheme. I'm sure that it would have been fun. Not as good as Guy's God Bless the Ring, but what can match that perfection?
Oh! Yes. Yeah, the cloud dick dive. I dropped my controller. Oh.
No one knows exactly why this title got cancelled. The theory is that Square wanted to focus on console games instead of arcade titles, and pulled the plug. Good foreskin from Square, given that arcade games would fall in relevance once the 2000s hit. Plus, that control scheme sounded like it required more effort to use than just one of these things. Still, it's an interesting idea. I think this idea could be salvaged in the next Final Fantasy title, and somehow the protagonist of that title gets into Tekken over Tifa or Majima. My favorite kind of lost media, the lost media that is directly tied to another form of lost media that needs to be explained to give context. In the 90s, the world was cursed and blessed by this invention called the Internet.
Internet?
Yeah, it's the inner netting they invented to line swim trunks. It provides a comforting snugness.
Sega, always ahead of the curve, wanted to take advantage of this new thing, and they made a service for the internet called HeatNet. Developed by Sega Soft and launched in 1997, it allowed users to play Sega games online and some third-party titles like Quake 3 Arena. There were even ways to earn currency called degrees by doing things like answering trivia questions or watching ads. Remember, HeatNet was launched in the 90s. Just goes to show how forward-thinking Sega was back then. Maybe too forward-thinking.
Leave a comment if you still think stuff like this is 20 years old, when in reality, this stuff is 20 years old. We're all getting old.
What's relevant to this topic is a game called NetFighter, made exclusively for the service. This was a fighter developed by Cyrox for PCs, and it's the first online fighting game. In the future, there's no room for the millions of criminals out there, so convicts are put into cyber prisons with next to no chance to escape. Ah, sweet. Man-made horrors beyond my comprehension. In the cyber prison, anything goes, including the tournament NetFighter. You play through the campaign and you try to find out who's pulling the strings here. Fighters include Malice, Crystal, Gemini, Freak, Ripper, Tetsuo! And basically, Judge Dredd crossed with Killer Instinct if it was a ketamine crash out from Elon Musk. I said his name wrong on purpose. I found a thread on Twitter that confirmed that it was supposed to be the spiritual successor to Eternal Champions. In fact, there was supposed to be an Eternal Champion character in NetFighter, but Sega put a ban on anything from that title. For what it's worth, the animation shown on the HeatNet sampler disc was smooth. Even though we know the plot, very little else is online for NetFighter. Searching it up online isn't helpful thanks to its generic name. I kept getting results for Virtual Fighter or Mahjong. Given how old this title is when it was released, there are very little first-hand accounts of playing it back in the day. anime. Upon more research, there was a disc release of this title that goes for a pretty penny. The Internet Archive has the ROM, which I'll put a link in the description for. I couldn't get the ROM to work on my PC, but that's a skill issue on my end. Or it might be one of those things that doesn't work because HeatNet is down. I think the issue with NetFighter is that it's such an obscure title with a generic name released at a time before the internet became a necessity. It's no wonder this game has languished in obscurity. If you can get the ROM to work, let me know so we can get a NetFighter tournament going at EVO 2025.
I ran a poll on my community tab page about which anime do you want to see a new competitive 2D fighter of, and to my surprise, Sailor Moon won this battle. Damn, Demon Slayer really fell off, didn't it? There is a legendary Kuso game in Japan, a Sailor Moon fighting game that was released on the Super Famicom that still sees tournament play here and there. All they gotta do is remake that game with rollback netcode, crossplay some new 3D models, and we're in business. Just as long as it's not another 3D arena-based fighting game, because I'm kinda tired of those. Namco?
Japanese cell phone games are such a tragedy for lost media hunters. There are so many cool games released for various services in Japan throughout the 2000s. Sadly, due to the nature of the beast, when those services went down, the games went down with them. Most of these games were meant to be throwaway titles meant to keep people entertained while they were on their long commutes. And I don't think people playing those titles back in the day were really concerned about preserving them. One title that is sadly lost is an Evangelion fighter. Neon Genesis Evangelion Operation Fighter was released on cell phones in 2007 by Gainax and Tin Machine. Not to be confused with Neon Genesis Evangelion Battle Orchestra, released for the PS2 and PSP in 2007. I'll be showing footage of that in the background throughout this part. Fighting Operation was released to tie in with the then new rebuild of Eva movies. That's why the aesthetics and character selection reflects that film. You get 6 characters, Shinji, Asuka, Rei, and 3 angels. There's an abridged story mode, a versus mode, survival, and training mode. I can't find any footage, but the visuals are nice. I'm sure this would have been a great way to kill time on the toilet when you are fighting for your life after spicy ramen. Or basically me every day on the toilet. This title was released on Docomo's Mega Game Initiative, as well as taking the advantage of the FOMA 903i's capabilities. The rumor is that a lot of games from 2007 have a special encryption in them that makes it hard to dump. If that wasn't enough, emulators for this type of game aren't available, so even if someone were to purchase an old cell phone that had the game on it, it would be a tall order to get Fighting Operation dumped and working. Tin Machine also made other EVA games, like a casino title, a visual novel, and a whole RPG. Their site also listed titles for Nadia and Gurren Lagann. Japan got all the cool stuff, I came here too late. I'm sure these games were just a paycheck for Tin Machine, but it's clear effort went into the titles. I have a lot of nostalgia for throwaway games that most wouldn't think anything of, but I play them and enjoy them. And I know others feel the same way. There has to be some huge EVA fan out there who played Fighting Operation or any of those games back in the day and would like to relive some memories. I hate the feeling that something I worked on is forever lost to time because of technological or licensing issues. Your art existing is proof that you exist, and it sucks that your art is lost to time. I personally would like to play Fighting Operation just to see what it would have been like. I don't think they had rollback netcode for cell phones in 2007, but we can always mod it in.
So there's a look at some fighting game lost media, and I hope you enjoyed it. I love fighting games, I love lost media. This video was a no-brainer for me to make. Plus, it was a lot of fun researching some topics that I didn't know about, and I'm sure a lot of you didn't know about either. Plus, it's better than talking about Tekken Cross Street Fighter for the millionth freaking time on this channel. I haven't played it as much, but I do have a lost media email account. Feel free to send me some tips down there, and I might make a video or a short about it. Speaking of which, I have been pretty good about uploading some shorts on my YouTube channel. Please feel free to check those out. It really helps the channel grow. And with that, I think we're done here. So in the comments, what's your favorite fighting game ever, or who is your favorite fighting game character to use? Any fighting game at all? Let me know down there in the comments. And when you're down there, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell as well for notifications on future videos. Follow me on the social media accounts like Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok @Zmings. And with that, I will see you in the next video. Later, everybody. Take care.